They built 1,174 Shelby GT350s in 1967. How many do you think are unrestored and have one owner? That's right, just one.
My name is Mike Russell, nicknamed Bigfoot. It is a 1967 Shelby GT350. It is an original, one-owner, unrestored car.
Are you the only one-owner, unrestored Shelby?
I have investigated this, and I am a member of the Shelby Club, a representative for the state of Tennessee. In my research, I have been unable to find any other original, unrestored one-owners that have been in their possession longer than I've had mine. I purchased mine on June the 15th of 1967. I was just graduating from Air Force pilot training, which I completed at Craig Air Force Base in Selma, Alabama. Okay. And it turned out that in May of that year, Ford and Shelby had an agreement to allow you to order a Shelby car, which normally were only delivered through his dealers. But there was a Ford dealer, Turner Ford in Selma, Alabama, that didn't even know they could do this. And I went down to them and said, I want to order one, and I ordered this car.
What is the Shelby package on these cars?
The Ford Motor Company, particularly Lee Iacocca, who was a very famous senior management person with a number of companies, but at the time working for Ford. Iacocca went to Shelby and said, we want to turn this into a race car so that we can have a race on Sunday, sell on Monday mindset. And Shelby's initial reaction was, it can't be done. But Iacocca said, you know how much money Ford Motors is giving you? Guess what? Shelby said, we'll make it happen.
Well, you do it.
They took these cars, and a gentleman hired at the time by Shelby named Chuck Cantwell, and Chuck took a Mustang starting with the 65s, because this was 2 years prior to this car, and developed them as a SCCA B-class sports car. The things that they did were to modify the engine to get more horsepower. That was the high performance 289. They also modified the front suspension and put larger brakes on it, and modified the handling characteristics of the car, and lightened it from what Ford sold off the production line. The 67s were simply a generational improvement. The car was intended to become more of a grand touring car and still maintain a lot of the performance characteristics. Now, for the modifications for this car, included these scoops. This was for braking airflow. This one was to vent the inside to make it more comfortable. Then the hood and the trunk lid were put on the car, and then what are called the front and rear valance. And those are basically the forming pieces that give it the shape it's got. The engine was rated with Shelby modifications at 306 horsepower. There was, however, an option which I was able to take advantage of, and that's purchase the factory supercharger kit. The factory rating was 390 horsepower. This engine was dyno tuned and has 410 horsepower. It's the one of only about 40 of them that were ever built. Today you can't find them. I've never been somebody that just follows the crowd. And I saw that in '65, when these cars came out, Shelby and a group of hot rodders in Southern California made Corvettes look like boat anchors. And I thought, you know, I'm not going to race that much, but everybody in the world can buy a Corvette. Not many people can own a Shelby. This is called Lime Gold Metallic. There were 193 cars, GT350s, made in this color combination.
So this car is basically all original minus one or two items, which I can't remember what you said.
That's correct. Let me qualify that a little bit by saying this car is a driver. It has 92,500 plus miles on it. I put 25,000 miles on it the first year I had it. The reason that it is that many miles is because I drove it. And I can tell you a story about how Shelby felt about that in a minute. But what I have, tires, fuel, oil, belts, things that of that nature have been changed over the years just to keep the car drivable. But in the interior, because of the fact that over these years, including almost every Shelby convention I've ever been to, I take this car out on what's called open track and drive it at speed. It's, for lack of a better term, gentleman racing. It's what the car was built for. It's why I loved it so much, because it handles so well. And so I took the original street seats, which were called Comfort Weave, and they were a very wide, flat seat, but they were slicker than snot on a doorknob, as we say down south. And when you try to go behind the steering wheel and go around a corner, you'd slide off the side, and I didn't like that. So I purchased these seats from a company that Steve McQueen owned called Solar Products, and they were as close as I could come to replicating the factory seats. They're not real close, but they hold you. They have side bolsters. They hold your legs in place. When you go around a corner, you stay behind the wheel.
Were they as prestigious then as they are now?
No.
Okay, so when did you kind of start to realize that maybe you had something special?
Well, it's interesting because in 2012, Hot Rod Magazine had on the inside of the front cover of their magazine, a picture of a bunch of 67 Shelby Mustangs sitting behind their dealership of Tasca Ford in Providence, Rhode Island. And that picture showed them snow-covered and looking very forlorn. And I thought, you know, I'm going to show those guys that some of them were taken care of.
Yeah.
Well, I had a picture of this car on the track at Virginia International Raceway at the previous year's convention. So I sent it to them, and it turned out that that was put on a third page at the bottom of an article written about Mickey Thompson, the very famous sports and drag race car guy. And it tells it, no trailer queen this car.
Got a couple dings and dents which you've just left, which I think is the coolest, but my favorite one is that one. What happened there?
Well, one of the races that I was looking at back in the early 70s, particularly 1974, I was running autocrosses and solo 1 and 2 autocrosses with the Sports Car Club of America, SCCA. Well, I had put some race car tires. So being in Indianapolis, I was able to get a hold of a set of actual Indy car tires. In one of the laps on that turn, there was a chunk hole, pothole, whatever you want to call it. And I hit a bump at about 90 miles an hour, and it came up, and that wide tire burned the paint on the inside of the fender there. And I said, well, that's just a war wound. So this airplane airplanes had bullet holes, and this car has a burned paint.
You've got a really neat autograph in there. Can you tell me about that story?
In 2003, here at the Nashville Super Speedway, Carroll Shelby, who had been in poor health the preceding years, was able to make that convention. And I had, in previous years, tried to get connected with him to get him to sign the car. Well, it turned out that he wasn't signing cars that year, but I twisted a few arms and maybe a few other things. I didn't pay any money, though. And got him to agree to come over and sign the car. And he walked about 150 feet from his trailer to my car unassisted and came over and sat down in the passenger seat. And he, being a pilot and me a pilot as well, we talked airplanes for about 15, 20 minutes. And then he said, where do you want me to sign it? I said, right there above the glove box, which he did. And then he looked over at the odometer and saw that at that point I was 60 years old. And he looked over at the odometer. He said, I love it. He said, you drive this car. I said, I put 25,000 miles on it the first year I had it. And then I had to go to Vietnam for 3 years. And when I came back, I started driving it again. Just an interesting sidebar, the two little lines where he underlines the L's and 2 lines, those are to mark 2 different heart transplants that he had.
Really?
To keep him alive, yeah.
What's your best memory? I bet it'd be really hard to pick one, but I bet that's up there.
It definitely is. My wife and I left our wedding in this car. And we're coming up on 58 years of marriage in another couple of months, and we have 6 children and 13 grandchildren. And all of the children have driven the car at one point in time. My wife drove it back in those days when we were going places. It's kind of fallen on hard times because everybody's afraid of it now.
Well, I was nervous in it. After all of these years of owning, and then I don't know when you realized it became pretty valuable. Why you never sold it?
Well, it's interesting because I've had that similar versions of that question asked by a number of people. There are a whole lot of things that are more valuable than money, and this is one of them. We've just got so many memories.
Yes.
So much fun with this. For the last 6 or 7 conventions that were held on the East Coast, I've taken as many as 19 people along with me, almost all of them family members, most of them grandchildren and children. And just to introduce them to the car hobby that I knew back in those days and to get to meet some of these great people over the years that have been associated with it and all. It's truly a second family. It's a much more human experience than a lot of stuff today. And I view that as this is a catalyst for that to happen.
It's my last question. It's my favorite question. I ask everybody. Would you sell it?
Would I sell it? Interestingly, no, the kids don't want me to sell it. And in fact, we've had this discussion. I'll be 84 in September. And although I'm in pretty good health for a guy my shape and size, that question obviously is part of it. We have a trust established for the family, and the car is in the trust. But what I basically have been toying with and have been approached by, there is a museum in the Shelby environment. I don't want to give away their name, but during a visit to that museum, they approached me about purchasing the car when I'm gone because they would like to put it into it. And one of the cars in that museum is Carroll Shelby's original 289 Cobra. And to be considered in a similar situation, I thought was quite an honor. So I am considering that among other options. I would love it if it stayed in the family but the kids are all, Dad, you know so daggone much about the car and we don't know anything about it. I said, I understand that, but I felt it was quite an honor to be approached about putting it into a museum.
Just a little.
that stick.
Yeah. On purpose, wanted you to hear this is a real car.